My sibling snatched every partner I was involved with for years, so I presented her with someone who ruined her existence. I was burdened with an inherent relationship saboteur from the moment my younger sister, Diane, entered the world. And I'm not referring to shared clothing or harmless infatuations. I mean the sort of pilfering where if I introduced a partner, she'd have him enchanted in no time. If I brought someone to family supper, she'd be sneaking into his messages before the meal ended. If I shared an adorable duo picture on social media, she'd coincidentally encounter him at his preferred cafe the following morning. People constantly remarked that Diane inherited our mother's gorgeous appearance while I got our father's clever humor. The contrast hurt, but I adapted to it until the partner poaching began. It started harmlessly in secondary school. My partner Trevor abruptly desired to review lessons at our residence each day. Diane would drift past in her cheerleading outfit, requesting his assistance with her math assignments. I missed the scheming back then since I had full faith in them both. But in hindsight, the indicators were glaringly obvious. By our 20s, Diane's methods turned precise and calculated. I was with Cameron for half a year before taking him to family introductions. 7 days after that unfortunate gathering, Diane faced a dilemma and required his strong support in the wee hours. They ended up intimate that very evening. Next was Marcus from my advertising firm. Identical strategy: family meal, fabricated crisis, late-night consolation. Upon finding their passionate exchanges, she dared to cock her head and grin innocently. "I'm simply verifying if they're suitable for you, Laurel," she stated, fluttering her lashes. Marcus didn't pass the evaluation at all. Internally, I had to concede she might be correct. If these individuals would desert me for my sister without hesitation, perhaps they weren't my true matches anyway. But that reasoning failed to mend the sting of disloyalty in my heart. Then arrived Derek, the one who almost shattered me. We'd been a couple for 2 years, discussing matrimony earnestly once I completed my healthcare training. Diane got intoxicated at his celebration event, which I'd organized meticulously, and embraced him publicly at the chain restaurant. When he picked her instead of me, she boldly shared on social media, "Occasionally love strikes unexpectedly. Regrets, but not really." Mother confronted me during the holiday feast, her tone as cutting as the slicing tool. "You must cease displaying these men to Diane," she murmured while mixing the sauce. "She struggles to restrain herself when you present a lure directly in her view. Why do you continue positioning her for disappointment?" In my thoughts, I hadn't been offering anything. I'd been attempting to form significant connections, only to see them collapse beneath my sister's persistent allure assault. A quarter-year later, destiny favored me at my university housemate's nuptials in the Windy City. That's where I encountered Connor, all I'd ever envisioned in a tall frame. Compassionate, prosperous as a tech developer, and evidently resistant to feminine deceit. For 8 wonderful months, I concealed him entirely from my relatives. We traveled to adjacent cities for outings, refrained from uploading pair images, and I revealed him to nobody. I believed I'd at last outwitted Diane's partner-grabbing scheme. This was the most wholesome, authentic bond I'd ever known. Connor spoke of our tomorrow with such assurance that I began trusting in joyful conclusions once more. But then my talkative relative Amanda inadvertently referenced Connor to Mother in a conversation, who predictably told Diane soon after. My sister's investigative abilities matched those of federal agents. She located him via his firm's online presence in mere days. The treachery struck me like a speeding locomotive when I unlocked Connor's place and discovered them entwined in our sleeping area. The most awful aspect wasn't witnessing the deed. It was Diane's response. She rose, fully exposed and completely unashamed, and struck the fatal comment. "Truthfully, I performed a massive service for you," she declared, collecting her garments without any regret. "He hardly endured a short while. You merit far superior to that, sibling." Connor merely lifted his shoulders, not attempting to conceal. "Your sister's far too attractive for me to pass up. You get it correct." I remained there quivering with fury and shame as Diane bid him farewell with a peck, treating me as if I were unseen, as if I were merely decor in the space. That spirit-destroying instant clarified it all for me. Diane didn't take my partners due to protective instincts or pure draw. She did it simply because she was able, because she relished observing my breakdown, because demolishing my joy had turned into her distorted pastime. Heading to my compact car in the lot, my fingers trembling so intensely I struggled to hold the ignition device, I resolved on a choice that would alter all. Diane yearned for males she couldn't ignore. All right. I'd provide her precisely that, in a form that would dismantle her thoroughly. The scheme began shaping in my thoughts on the lengthy commute back. Diane consistently pursued identical kinds. Striking, charismatic, apparently accomplished males who made her sense selected and unique. She never probed beyond the exterior, never doubted their narratives or histories. That oversight would lead to her demise. I devoted the following weeks to exploring official documents, legal archives, and verification services. That's how I uncovered Vincent Romano, an extraordinarily attractive individual posing as an investor from the mile-high city. Freshly separated following his former spouse's records of prolonged monetary and psychological mistreatment in legal papers. Dual protective mandates from prior companions, presently probed for investment scams. Ideal. Vincent's professional network page depicted him as a thriving business starter, including polished portraits that might have secured him modeling gigs. But further investigation exposed the reality. A refined swindler who focused on deceiving females into economic collapse. I fabricated a false professional profile as a prospective backer and contacted him with a venture idea. We convened at a coffee chain in the urban center, where I enacted the part of defenseless elder sibling flawlessly. I displayed Diane's social media shots, praising how she invariably claimed my partners due to her captivating allure. I simply can't rival her, I uttered, allowing my tone to waver with rehearsed feeling. Every fellow I've cherished winds up selecting her over me. I sensed so insignificant. Vincent's gaze brightened like a hunter detecting injured quarry. He perceived precisely what I intended. A damaged female he could readily control, with a stunning sister as the supreme prize. "You appear to be a remarkable individual, Laurel," he remarked, extending over the surface to clasp my palm. "Any male who would depart from you for another is foolish." Captured completely. We commenced courting right away, with me portraying the enamored companion while he established his typical fraud. He overwhelmed me with lavish meals at upscale steakhouses, short escapes to mountain retreats, and vows of a shared path. But I could discern his act. Each praise was deliberate, each action meant to create emotional reliance. After 3 weeks of this pretense, I informed him I wished to hide our connection from Diane since she had a pattern of claiming my partners. Then I extended an invitation as my companion to Mother's anniversary meal at the Italian chain, aware precisely of the cascade I was initiating. Vincent assumed he was manipulating me, setting up to victimize me while targeting Diane additionally. He was unaware he was entering a snare I'd refined over weeks. At Mother's anniversary gathering, Vincent executed his character impeccably. He disregarded Diane as if she didn't exist while lavishing me with focus that seemed authentic enough to deceive all present. He praised my pasta selection, chuckled at Father's awful puns, and even presented Mother with blooms. But Diane detested being overlooked, particularly by such an appealing male. She intensified just as I anticipated, contacting Vincent's limb during speech, inclining excessively near during laughter, murmuring private quips only for him. Her advances grew so evident that even our unaware parents began observing. I stepped away to the restroom and observed through the ajar entrance as Diane advanced decisively. "My sibling's pleasant, but she's quite ordinary in all aspects," she murmured, tracing her digit along Vincent's limb. I could demonstrate things she wouldn't imagine attempting. Upon returning and spotting them swapping contact details, I hurled my wine goblet straight at Vincent's visage and exited in tears. The act of an era with eye makeup streaming down my face. Diane contacted that evening, her tone oozing insincere worry that didn't deceive me. "Vincent fully approached me during the meal," she claimed. "But frankly, you're improved without him. He gives off a dubious vibe." In 2 days, she was uploading social media clips from his upscale residence in a posh area. In a week, she'd tumbled deeply into his deceptions. In a month, she'd relocated fully and granted him entry to her finances for joint costs. I observed the progression from afar, experiencing a blend of fulfillment and increasing discomfort. Diane was stepping unaware into a trap, and I was the guide who directed her there. But after years of my spirit being fractured by her egocentrism, I couldn't force myself to alert her to the peril. The initial fracture in Diane's ideal fresh existence emerged 6 weeks on when an attorney for Vincent's former spouse reached her personally. Vincent had concealed properties in his separation case, and now Diane might face responsibility as a collaborator in deceit. They're claiming I could be pursued legally too, Diane phoned me, anxiety seeping into her words. But Vincent clarified it all. His former spouse is merely resentful and stirring issues. I offered comforting sounds while privately aware this was just the start. Then came the disclosure that Vincent's funding company was truly a complex pyramid fraud. Diane had committed her full $30,000 reserves, persuaded she was entering the base of the upcoming major innovation firm. When authorities closed the venture, her funds disappeared instantly. It must be an error, she wept in another nighttime call. Vincent's legal team is contesting it. He assures will recover all with extra returns. But when Diane attempted to depart his home after uncovering further falsehoods, Vincent revealed his authentic nature. He seized her arm with such force it fractured, then confined her in the sleeping chamber while he vented about unappreciative females who failed to value his efforts. When she eventually fled and sought her finances, she learned he'd depleted all: current accounts, reserves, even her retirement fund. More severely, he'd utilized her details to secure borrowing and advances under her identity, submerging her in $80,000 of obligation she was unaware of. The ultimate strike occurred at daybreak on a weekday when federal officers forced entry into Vincent's home. They discovered Diane's endorsement on numerous false papers Vincent had duped her into authorizing, rendering her an unaware participant in investment scams, personal theft, and fund cleaning. My device rang early. Diane's identifier appeared, but I allowed it to voice recording. Diane's recording was scarcely understandable amid her cries. "Laurel, please. I'm detained and they're indicating possible incarceration. Vincent exploited me completely and now authorities believe I assisted him. I realize I wounded you, but please, I implore, I require aid." I replayed it thrice before erasing. The regional broadcasts covered the event soon. Resident female detained in massive scam plot. Diane's arrest photo appeared on the evening news, her makeup smeared and her gaze vacant with ruin. Mother phoned instantly, frantic. "You must assist your sibling. She erred but doesn't merit this." "She chose her path," I responded steadily, just as with Cameron, Marcus, Derek, and Connor. The quiet lingered before Mother murmured, "You were aware, weren't you? You knew his nature." I remained silent since the facts were too intricate for a basic affirmation or denial. Had I foreseen Vincent would obliterate Diane so utterly? Not precisely. Had I investigated him sufficiently to comprehend his threat? Definitely. Diane ultimately admitted to reduced accusations for cooperating against Vincent. She completed 8 months in light custody and exited with a criminal history, ruined borrowing, and a protective decree barring Vincent from approaching her forever. The family gatherings ceased. Mother couldn't regard me identically, divided between shock at my actions and reluctant respect for my systematic retaliation. Father simply nodded when Diane was mentioned, grumbling about inevitable results and repercussions arriving. Diane relocated to the Northwest after freedom, serving coffee and gradually reconstructing her world. We haven't communicated in 2 years, but I sometimes view her social media. She appears more mature now, more guarded. The assured, aggressive spark in her gaze has shifted to something calmer and less confident. Occasionally, I ponder if I exceeded limits. If wrecking my sibling's existence justified the gratification of ultimately succeeding in our warped contest. But then I recall Connor's indifference, Diane's bare arrogance, and years of my contentment disintegrating for her amusement. She received precisely what she'd pursued lifelong, a male she couldn't overlook. She simply didn't anticipate his inability to avoid demolishing all she valued. I've attended counseling for 12 months, processing the intricate feelings of engineering another's collapse, even one who'd injured me often. My counselor states vengeance seldom delivers the serenity we anticipate, and she's accurate. I don't sense victorious or justified. Primarily, I feel vacant where that resentment once resided. But I also rest easier knowing Diane will never claim another female's partner. Certain teachings can only be absorbed via total ruin, and my sibling at last absorbed hers. The difficult route.